Hello and welcome to this very, very interesting show about national security and technology in the time of cloud storage. Very recently, during the Russia Ukraine war, we saw the way the West responded, immediately cutting off payment gateways and things of that nature. And for the first time, I think, and maybe I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but one actually saw the world sort of big tech muscle in and say that, this is how we are going to try and get our way and make sure that our version of events or our perspective is adhered to. So that was interesting to me, and since then I've been thinking about this, didn't quite know how to frame it, and then felt that why not discuss it, because we live in very uncertain times. You all are aware of what happens on our borders from time to time. And it doesn't just stop there. It isn't just at our borders. And it goes much beyond that. And it touches all our lives in ways that we do not even realize. So this show today is going to scare you a little bit, but also inform you. And I have a great panel who knows exactly what they're talking about. So I'm not going to talk all that much. I'm going to let them take over, starting with Abhijit Ray, who is joining us from Kolkata. He's the CTO of Digiboxx, India's very own cloud storage. And very important again, because a lot of the information that we store in servers are located abroad and elsewhere. So we'll figure that out. I'm not tech savvy, so we'll figure that out and get the perspective on that. AIM is, of course, with us. Abhijit, back. Thank you, Abhijit, defense analyst par excellence. Very, very sharp on what's happening around the globe. Tracks information warfare, cyber warfare, all of those things, and he'll have something to tell us for sure. And finally, Colonel Pavitharan Rajan from Bangalore is joining us, military veteran, has served, of course, in the army and also in the military intelligence, has subsequently been an advisor with the Ministry of Home Affairs for 3 years, and now is a tech and entrepreneur as well as a professor. So thank you so much, Colonel, for joining us. And let's just dive right into it. Colonel, let's start with you, because you're, of course, an army man, and you've seen war on all fronts. So tell us a little bit about information, cyber warfare, and how you got acquainted with this.
Okay, that's a slightly long story. But this era is more or less called the information era, and it has got to do with information and communication technologies and their impact on the human cognitive processes. So, how do you ways that war is a multidisciplinary, study, and people have not been able to fully even define the scope of that war, because this is one war where there is no war or peace. It transcends both, and even into the economic realm. It drives narratives, and it follows the axiom of Sun Tzu that the best way to win the war is to subdue the enemy without even fighting. So that's how I would put information warfare as. But then one thing which we need to know, that if you achieve supremacy, okay, in information warfare, it eventually leads to something called full spectrum dominance. So what is this full spectrum dominance? If you look at history, and if you trace back history, empires have risen and fallen because of various reasons. But if you achieve full spectrum dominance, there is no way that that empire can fall. So it's slightly philosophical in that way. But maybe during the talk, we can bring that particular matter out, because in an information warfare, if you know everything about yourself and everything about the rest, everyone, there's no way you can lose. Back to you.
Thank you, Colonel. And moving on to AIM. AIM, how do you view this?
So, for me, it's exactly what the Colonel said. See, you had the industrial age, you had the coal age, then you had the sort of diesel and petrol age, and those were all manufacturing ages. Till in the 80s, you moved to the digital age, and finally in the 90s, the information age, right? Now, what is the information age? It's a whole set of things, right? It's also controlling the rare earths which you use to produce stuff. it's microchips, using the microchips to create, backdoors and what have you in electronic equipment, because we've moved from a manufacturing economy. Well, developed economies have moved from manufacturing economies to service economies. And it's not just collecting that information, it's fusing that information, it's using that information. And, there are, for the first time, I think, in human history, you've come to a point where you're able to very subtly control minds without people knowing about it, by seeing what they see and feeding them just the right amount of stimulus. We've gotten to an age where you won't even know what you're doing is being compromised. So also information extraction, which then gets used for societal control in a way. But then, the bright spark there is, you also see those sort of ability to control, implode or explode every now and then. So it's a world that's full of opportunity, and it's a world that's full of danger. And it's quite scary. And what you find is you're sort of returning to, in government terms, you're returning to an era of feudalism where corporates are frequently more powerful than states, which is very scary. And in that, you also have these tendencies. It depends, positive or negative, depending on how you look at them, of introducing new. I wouldn't call them religious dogmas, but post-religious dogmas to kind of control society and slow down the pace of technology to maintain monopolies. Remember, any restriction on thought and freedom of speech, in a sense, slows down innovation, which is why it was, sort of the Reformation and the Renaissance that led to the great mental revolutions that happened in Europe and things like that. So for me, information warfare, like the Colonel said, is a very complex, it's a full spectrum kind of thing where you have to control resources and means. You have to know the back doors. It's so vast. It kind of subsumes, and like the Colonel said, you gain full spectrum dominance if you master this in many ways. Because see, it involves jamming as well. I would say electronic warfare is a part of information warfare. Because in order to get your jamming algorithms right, you first need to know at what frequencies the other side operates, right? So there's a whole load of things that you go through to come to information warfare in that sense.
Abhijit, over to you. If you can put it for us in more layman terms, some of the terms that have been referred to and what they mean and how they're used.
Frankly speaking, the level that these two gentlemen have given, I would not know half the things as per their terms. But what I can tell you from my terms, when it comes to information warfare, from my point of view, if I put it into our perspective, what we are doing today is we have a platform, especially for Indians, to store their own data. Now, if I put it back, just step back for a minute. Before us, the options that we had are the biggies that we already know about. The huge corporates that AIM just talked about, people or corporates that are almost as big as governments. Now these corporates today are they've turned us into their slaves. Because there is nothing we can demand of them. They demand of us. Okay, it's fine. Some entity becoming that big becomes that big, gives out to the world. Everyone depends on them for services and other things. But then what comes out of it, as you rightly pointed? Ukraine war. Now, from a layman's perspective, a war takes place. That a country is cut off from the rest of the world, others can strong arm them. It just goes to show that you can cut off basic services out of it. And today, you cut off services, something like a news feed or other feeds and everything. you essentially stop the flow of information in whichever way you can. The moment you stop that flow of information, we go back some days, because today the world is in the information age.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't get, simple, if I don't get to see information for some time, if I don't receive all these feeds, I might as well be going back and living in a cave. Right. Now, if I put that into my perspective, now, as Digiboxx, what we've done is we have given the people of India a platform to store their data within the country. Because, like I said, the global biggies, they can store your data anywhere, yours, mine, anyone's. They can store it anywhere. And tomorrow, just like you said, if they cut off the service, then we are completely at their mercy. Having said that, we have seen that our services are attacked almost every day from multiple corners of the earth.
Is that true? Wow.
Every month I review how many attacks we are fending off. And last month there were about 5,000 attacks we fend off.
On you're saying attacks on Digiboxx, your cloud service.
Yes.
Okay.
So we also have to upgrade our defense mechanisms to make sure the outsiders remain out. And we are doing that. So from my perspective, that is also a kind of heist that people would try to do to get unauthorized access to data.
Colonel, how realistic is this scenario that our servers being located on international territory can actually impact all of us, like me, somebody like me who's just living an ordinary, normal life? I'm not in any kind of espionage or government or anything. How does it impact me and people like me?
Okay, so today's world was foreseen by the West, okay, before 50, 60 years back. They foresaw that when interconnected computers are going to come, there will be, the sovereignty scales of nations are going to come down, and they decided they had to prepare their population. So if you look at privacy as a concept, privacy was never there in human history. In fact, most cultures have been emphasizing that people should be more open. People who are secretive and others were, if you look at it, in all cultures was not trusted. But when they realized that this world is going to happen, they educated their population. And in the West, people are privacy conscious, and they have created laws and regulations, and people act in a way where they are taught to guard their privacy and data. They also did one more thing. They pushed out concepts which said that privacy is a cultural concept, and in many other nations they don't have that concept of privacy. So that is a good that is part of their culture. So when I tackle this whole thing, there are a lot of people who try to tell me, "Hey, I have nothing to hide."
Yeah.
So when you ask them elementary things like, okay, how do you, even people who know a lot of things, they say, I have nothing to hide. Okay, can you unlock your phone? Can you give it to me? Can you tell me your bank password? He said, no, bank password, I want to. I said, no, I thought you said nothing to hide. Okay, everything is, So then slowly, once you get into it, then he slowly realizes he's got a lot to hide, even from his very, very close family members. So, like you are not an espionage. You are an individual person. But believe you me, Advaita, if I know everything about you, it's a huge power differential. Okay?
Yeah.
If I know everything about you, I can manipulate you like putty. And if I know everything about what has happened in your background, your mental makeup, your medical history, your sexual predilections, your financial status, you are like putty. So now transform that into a whole population. Then that whole population is putty. And especially in a democratic system, where you are into electoral politics, you can just play them. So I hope I've given you a sense of what can happen to you.
Yeah.
Okay. And now you transport the whole thing into the whole population. Okay, so any economic activity, you'll realize it's all to do with information. If, for example, okay, we are growing wheat here, so crop is failing in, Russia and Ukraine. Oh, the price of this can go up. What are your stocks? Can you hoard it? Can you do it for a competitive advantage? These are all economic activities. So as a nation, if you can't guard that data, people who have that data can play the whole system. And then what you will win as a nation or as individually is what the other person will allow you to win. That is domination. Okay. That is very, very. So now I'm slowly beginning to make you understand not only finances, your food, your economic, your banking, how the stocks will move up, move down, who is going to invest, how they're going to play. Just imagine, mentally you might not be able to visualize, but AI becoming more and more smarter, those AIs can really manipulate the data and ensure that you don't have to fight. You will, that guy who has got all the data is going to win. So I don't know whether I have been able to, convey the sense of what does it mean. And
You scared me. I don't know if that was the
my aim
plan.
was to scare you. My aim was to tell you the polite truth. I'm very happy people like Abhijit has come up with Digiboxx. So my only this is he has to keep riding that particular thing. It is not only technology. When you talk about technology and its security, there is something called a OSI layer, which are in 7 layers. Okay, how much of that OSI layers can he control so that he can protect his data? Today, we in India we don't have the capability, but yes, it's a beginning what he has done. So when it is under your legal jurisdiction, at least, so for example, okay, the same data is in Pakistan, and for me, or maybe a general who is commanding his troops on the LOC, and suddenly he sees his bank balance is suddenly vanished, or something else has happened. Is he going to concentrate on the front, or is he going to look at his own house and bank balance? I'm just trying to, if his house is in disarray, how is he going to? So it's imagination how we can play this. Back to you.
Sure. Thank you, Colonel Abhijit. Taking it forward. AI was something that Colonel brought up, and I've heard Elon Musk also talk about it many times. He's saying at some point, rather than AI working for us, we might be working for AI. And do you think that's a possibility? And where does that come into the kind of threat perception that we see? And Abhijit Ray is feeling very challenged by this question. Abhijit, you wanna answer it?
Okay, which Abhijit did you ask? Him or me?
I asked
I'm
Abhijit
AIM.
AIM.
You're Abhijit.
Okay.
I asked AIM
So refer
because
to me as
but then I
AIM.
saw your reaction because you were like getting kind of. So I said, let me maybe ask you this.
So who's the question to, Abhijit or AIM?
Okay, AIM, you go first, and then Abhijit can go next. Okay, how about that?
Okay. So see, look, I'm going to try to dumb this down as much as possible, right? So privacy, for example, I put different things on Twitter, different things on Instagram, different things on YouTube, and different things on Facebook, right? And as a result, each one of them shows me different ads. So for example, my Instagram will only show me things relating to big, large gemstones and interior decor and kitchen appliances. My Twitter will only show me left-wing handles who I like to troll. My Facebook will only show me all the aunts and uncles that I'm trying to avoid on every other platform, right? The YouTube will only show me the latest cooking videos and the latest conspiracy theory videos, right? Now, question, monitoring all of these is my operating system, my Mac OS, which is monitoring all this activity and fusing all the data together and sending it back in some kind of packet to Palo Alto or wherever Apple headquarters is, right? So there are things, now my sense of privacy then gets violated, right? Because I don't want my Instagram viewers to see my Twitter. I don't want my aunts and uncles to see what I do on Instagram or Twitter, right? But these guys are seeing everything. And because we don't read the small text, they transmit and analyze everything, fuse it together, and they get a whole of Abhijit picture of who and what Abhijit is. Right? Now, the problem here in regulating privacy is twofold. One is government trust or private corporation trust. So in America, for example, nobody trusts big government. Right? They would rather trust private corporations. But then, as you've seen with Twitter files come out, those private corporations, like we suspected, have abused the trust of their customers very, very badly. Right? On the other hand, you will find countries like France where they trust their government more than they do private industry. So I have so many French friends who refuse to be on Twitter, who refuse to be on Facebook, who refuse to be on social media because they're like, I'm fine sharing all these details with the government. I don't share it with American private corporations. In India, unfortunately, we're a bit mixed up in all of this, right? Because our regulatory mechanisms are crap. There is no regulation. There's no enforcement of regulation realistically. Second, our detection mechanisms are crap. Because remember, the amount that Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft all spend on creating these algorithms, you need to have an even more agile and bigger department than all these departments put together to scan the algorithms and see what is acceptable and not acceptable under Indian law. And they will not disclose those algorithms to you. So how do you even detect violations of your citizenship? So, they're doing the data localization law, which I really support, because that data put by Indians has to be held in India. It can't be held abroad. But even there, how are you going to police that particular law? It's very, very problematic, right? In India, it is even more necessary than all these other countries, because remember, we're the world leader in digital payments. Okay, we lead the world in access to a lot of digital platforms. On the other hand, we have the lowest possible cost of access devices, right? India is a very price-sensitive phone and computer market. Most people will not put antivirus and privacy security on their phones. So you have the highest provision of e-services on the lowest protection, lowest cost devices, which then makes you very uniquely vulnerable, right? So, so you have a lack of government capacity combined with this sort of dichotomy. It becomes a very, very dangerous situation we're in. And I don't think we've actually woken up to it yet. I think the data localization is the first step, but there's a lot more that needs to come. For example, we have this data privacy law. It's not new. They're talking about it now, but we've had a data privacy law before. And we didn't want it. We enacted it because the European Union needed a law for India to have a law for them to be able to give BPO operations to India, right? That same month, I don't know if our viewers remember, but there was a leak of video cam footage from the Delhi metro to a pornographic website of couples making out in Delhi metro stations.
Oh.
Okay, your metro security was hacked, videos were taken, privacy was violated, and sold to a porn site. To date, there have been no arrests, there has been no prosecution, there has been squat. Now imagine if you were a terrorist and able to buy this information. I'll leave it there.
Abhijit.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm completely in line. Data privacy is of paramount importance today. The thing is, today, most people have woken up to the need of data privacy. People are actually aware of what data privacy is. Until a few years ago, we were like, that's okay. I mean, we really never bothered. But I'll tell you one instance, which I'm pretty sure happens to everyone. You give your number, let's say at the bank, you open an account. Few days later, you'll start getting calls from various other banks. Please, here, would you like a credit card? Would you like a loan? And so on. And it is frustrating that I can't stave them off, just like millions of other people. And primarily, it's one of the reasons AIM had just mentioned. Our data privacy laws are there, but well, I don't know who's enforcing it. I don't know who's actually monitoring it. But from what I hear, that the government is coming up with a newer version, which will be out very soon, and there will be a different framework to implement and enforce the laws. While on that topic, that is something that we completely believe in, and that's why we all know what you just mentioned, that you search for something on Google, the next instant you'll find that you're getting some ad regarding that search topic, or you check something on some other site, you keep getting ads from there. That's because Google and various other companies, they buy data, they see what you are looking for, what you're typing, and they try to suit your mood, because the more they can do that, the more ads you get through, the more would be their revenue. So that's something we do not believe in. We believe in the fact that everyone's data should be private. So we don't keep anyone's data. We just use the bare minimum data that someone needs to log in. And we don't ask for anything else. We don't even allow any ads on our site, because we believe that data is God, and each person needs to keep his private space. So we shouldn't intrude into that. While on that, so that's on data privacy. You had another question about AI. Yeah, this is one hot potato. And frankly speaking, we watched Terminator when we were kids, and well, the world was swept away with it. AI coming in, and then that's like Judgment Day, apocalypse, and all of that. Yeah, the science fiction has been all about it for decades now. But would it actually happen? We don't know. But one thing I'm not too sure of, if you want my 2 cents, AI, I believe in, is going to have certain limitations. Why? Primarily because, well, this is me. I'm no expert, but this is what I think. Today, computers run on silicon. The chips are made of silicon. And silicon has certain limitations. The reason why carbon-based life forms, us, we can go above silicon is because carbon is much smaller. Its atomic number is lower than silicon. Carbon, I think, is C4, and silicon is probably 14. Well, goes back to my school days. So there is a limitation as to how much you can pack into how little. That's why our brains being so small, being carbon-based life forms, we can think, we can come up with intelligence which is far more than elsewhere. Although some people might argue we do have quantum computing coming up, and in fact, not coming up, it's out there already. Certain companies have started using quantum computing, which is like way fast. I mean, unimaginably fast than any conventional computer that we know about. It's going to be, yeah. So to achieve that level of intelligence, or for human intelligence, someone actually had shown a picture to a human intelligence mimicked for 10 seconds requires a server farm, which is like a 50,000 square foot floor. So maybe, Hopefully, we will never reach judgment day. But yes, you have OpenAI, ChatGPT, and all of these
Yes.
are making waves in the world today. So people, on one hand, people are kind of hoping yes, and on the other hand, are hoping no, because well, we are scared of the unknown. We don't know what happens. I have Alexa at home, and sometimes I
Mhm.
wonder, even though we are not speaking to Alexa, Alexa might be snooping on us.
Oh, but that's
Like,
been proven, hasn't it? Hasn't that already happened? Like Alexa's been listening in.
yeah, there have been reports, but well, I haven't heard big reports. I don't know if it's true or not, but somehow I can't shake that feeling. And
Yeah, it is creepy. Yeah.
yes, it is. It is.
Mm-hmm. Colonel, you're
So
smiling. What is your view on AI? Do you think we'll have these AI fueled robos in the future who'll come down? And this is the science fiction writer in me suddenly awakening, although it's been done before, so it's not very original. But AI can be this sort of very dangerous force in the world, which can control
Yes.
humans.
So I have a slightly different this to Abhijit. Okay, let me try and bring out AI in a layman's perspective.
Hmm.
Why are we intelligent? Is because we've got five senses. Maybe we might have a hidden sixth sense or something else, but our senses are limited to five. For example, our hearing is limited from a particular hertz to another particular hertz. Okay, hearing. Then we smell, we taste, we touch, we can see in a particular wavelength. Now you take the average smartphone. Today it comes almost packed with 30. The latest iPhone has around 30 odd sensors, and there is even a small little radar in it. Okay, lidar. Okay. Now,
Hmm.
and that particular sensors, they can go beyond higher than the human hearing, lower than the human hearing. They can see in multiple, wavelengths, which is beyond the human. This they can sense barometric pressure, this, that, etc. And then all this is it's not only one smartphone, millions of smartphones, billions. Okay, and these things have evolved with no hard switches even to switch off the power. My first phone, I remember, I could easily open the back and take out the battery. Now it's evolved. It's not easy to take out a battery. There is no hard switch. The last hard switch today, it's all soft switches. Okay, so that means there is no way can I push off the power. These things are not happening by accident. It is being pushed by corporates because they want the constant flow of data. Okay, they don't want you to switch
Mhm.
off. Okay, and when
Oh.
that sort of information and data can be analyzed, um, you know, uh, it's beyond human cognition. Like for example, Chat GPT, which has become very, people said the Turing test is if something can write something which can mimic human, this Chat GPT can do much more. I run a
Mhm.
company. In my company, a coder is saying, "Sir, I'm able to do the codes much faster because I'm just telling the Chat GPT to generate the code, and there they put it."
yes,
So, um,
Wow.
so,
yes.
so what I'm coming to is it is an exciting future, but if you to foresee that future, we have to look into our past, and we have to look at human evolution. We as a race, when you look back, is slightly depressing how we have evolved, although we have shown, you know. Um, so that sort of power differential, which is accumulating in a few nations, is hugely dangerous. So I written a paper, some time back, saying now if you look at, national security. Let me give you another, perspective. National security in India, we feel relatively secure because we are a continent-sized nation, okay? And we feel that unless things go nuclear, we may not get affected in our, hinterlands.
Mhm.
But we are the most varied population in the globe, ethnically, linguistically, culturally, what have you. The best way to undo India is by attacking the social cohesion of its varied population. And that too, when we have this competitive politics, which is today there, uh, we don't get a sense of this for the first time. People from outside know more about you than what you know about your own population. For example, even when the British ruled, they had to have intermediaries to control this population. That were us Indians. People used to call them brown sahibs. Today, you don't need that brown sahib in between. Okay, the data is directly getting fed. Okay, and whatever small little controls which people had, where the man with the lathi could go and say, hey, shut down this ISP, or there is a riot which is going on, let us pull down the internet from there. There is Elon Musk started off his that chain of satellites. The next generation phones are all going to stream data directly into those satellites. There will be no switching off. Okay, that data will continue to flow, and that is where I told you the aim would be full spectrum domination. Now, when you historically we realize that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is a human condition. So I am slightly more worried than Abhijit about our future unless we take precautions. And when you look at how we have in the last few years progressed, we have created that Aadhaar before any other nation. In Britain, they had a similar program. They started it off, then they stopped it and rolled it back. They're not fools. We don't even have a privacy law. How come we have stepped into a 100% digital economy without even a privacy law? We don't have our own products to control it. And what does our history talk about? The fight is not at the LC and LOC anymore. The fight is in, it's in that smartphone and the smartwatch and the data which is going. So I personally, I'm extremely worried. So we've been writing about and trying to build up awareness that we are not protecting our, national security. And like in the olden days, even in 62, a blunder was not, devastating to that extent. But today, I'm very worried. This is not a correct time. We are not, privacy is a fundamental right. And we've not been able to, after the judgment, not even be able to put a coherent law in place. That shows we are a very penetrated society. So I'm worried. Back to you.
Back to me, I'm petrified. But if you're worried, but AIM. Abhijit, please, yes.
What he said is, you're absolutely right. That definitely the fight is on our smartphones today. The fight is not all physically at LOC. I agree. But what I'm trying to say is trying to answer the question of Terminator. Could the machines rise up against humans one day? To get there, well, I don't think anyone has the answer. But if I were to conjecture, then there would be some kind of self-consciousness which has to come up. And that self-consciousness has to be stored somewhere. And that storage, today, what we have as our brains is all stored in this small cranium. Everyone has that. But if I were to make an equivalent, I don't know what will happen in the future, but at least looking at it today, with just silicon, it's not going to cut it. It's not going to happen. But we don't know what holds for us in the future. But yes, of course, we have reason to worry. I completely agree with you. But yes, we have to be careful. Since you brought this topic up, I read that Facebook was working on an AI program which was supposed to understand all languages. I forgot the main topic, but the gist of it is that this particular robot or AI suddenly one day started speaking in different terms. Now, there were two AI machines that they were working on. Mm-hmm. And suddenly, one day, the engineers realized that two AI robots were actually conversing with each other in a language which no one could understand. No one could understand that language.
But they understood each other.
They understood each other. They were responding to each other, but the humans could not understand. after observing that, they had a discussion and they thought that it's gone beyond them and they had to switch off, kill that project. They unplugged it. So, well, it's scary, right? All of a sudden, the creators have no clue as to what they've created, and it seems like it's gone out of hand. So possibly, we don't know if it is actually controlled or not, but as per the report, they had just switched it off. It wasn't a report, actually. Someone mentioned somewhere. Yes, Kanal.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm just jumping in. See, between carbon and silicon, I'm not worried about the silicon at this point. I'm worried about the carbon behind the silicon. Because today,
exactly,
as a nation,
exactly,
we are allowing the data to go out. We have no control of it. And all these platforms are controlled by humans and corporations. And behind those corporations are the deep states of nation states, okay, who have got, who are superpowers, who got global domination ambitions, who have a history of colonization. We have just come out of it. So I'm more worried about that. Whether silicon will finally overtake carbon is a different question altogether. But I'm very worried about the silicon behind the, the carbon behind the silicon. Okay,
you're right.
We are not in control. When you talk about us as a sovereign nation, where we assert, my passport remains Indian. I can say it's a global village, but my passport is Indian. I don't have a Schengen visa. Okay, you might say it's a global village. I'm acutely conscious of these facts, and I'm acutely also conscious that when we try to raise our economy and go up in the, as a nation where your per capita income rises, we, because of our population size, under one political authority, threatens many other nations. We are not a small nation. Like many other, small city states, whether they rise or not doesn't really matter. But our rise will be curated, because it's our latent potential which is a danger for other nations. And our history says whenever we have broken up into smaller, nations in the subcontinent, we ended up fighting each other, and someone else has come and taken us over. So I'm more worried about things like that in the immediate future. The silicon overtaking the carbon is far, maybe not in the immediate horizon. So that's what I wanted to bring out. Yeah.
Abhijit, AIM, this is interesting, right? We talk a lot about this, is the fact that I think Colonel said it beautifully. It's our latent talents which are really going to be tracked, which are at risk. The potential, which is at risk, and what is being tracked. And we see this constantly at even the international media level, wherein a lot of times, things that we've achieved, like say with our vaccination drive and things like that, there's a parallel campaign to kind of diminish that, or anything that we achieve on the space program front, for example. So do you want to address this a little bit?
So this is very much it is a governmental problem, but it's an interlinked problem. So, for example, with what Abhijit was saying about having to fend off attacks every single day, one of the models that Western industry has, where trust between corporations and the government is very thick, the company privately reports what are all the attacks that have happened to it on a daily basis, its source, and any solution if they found it to the government. And the government, without compromising the identity of that company, provides that sort of early warning best practices to every company across the board. So everybody's kind of kept in the loop. The problem is our government neither has the trust of private corporations. If they share information, it will almost certainly be used against them at some point. And B, they don't have the capacity to understand what it is and share it with other companies either, because that kind of trust doesn't exist either. Because, our government is literally nobody's friends. It just exists to take taxes from us and waste it on all kinds of rubbish as things happen. The problem is, this these technology gaps, they're increasing geometrically. You've seen how, Christopher Columbus landing up in the New World was literally an age where gunpowder met the Stone Age. you're looking at similar power differentials develop between those who get their information game right, which is a whole of country, whole of industry approach, and not a vertical silo. Right? You have to get everything right. You have to get your judiciary right. You have to get your regulation right. It requires everything. And so, first of all, developed countries have a huge lead on you. And second, that lead will only grow exponentially. You will grow arithmetically, they will grow geometrically. Okay. That's very, very problematic because you don't see information in a tangible form, but it actually tangibly makes powerful countries much more powerful. Right? This is number one. On the other hand, one of the reasons I don't get too alarmed with AI is because it has its limitations. Take ChatGPT, for example. Somebody asked ChatGPT, Mike's mother has 3 sons called Luke, Edward, and Richard. What is the 4th son called? And ChatGPT just didn't get the question. It says Mike's mother. So obviously the 4th kid's name is Mike, but it did not understand that question. Right? So AI is also limited by either the genius feeding it or the idiot feeding it. Right? So let me give you 2 examples. It's also become a great, I would say 90 to 95% of what is claimed as AI is a complete fraud. It's become, because people don't understand it, there's a whole lot of charlatans going about claiming that they do AI. So, for example, there's this company called Logically AI. You go read their introductory page, you just know that they know squat about AI. Okay, they literally take people's opinions, put a scatter diagram and call it AI. And because nobody understands AI, it's like the emperor's new clothes. Nobody wants to say the emperor is naked because, they would feel stupid, so they don't call it out. Do you remember in 2017 when UP was going to election, there was this huge election prediction AI that Raheel Khurshid, the former head of Twitter, had partnered up with some foreign cloud for, which predicted that Mulayam Singh was going to win 2/3 of the seats. And we all know what happened in 2017, right? So these are fed by biases, right? Now, what worries me is not the silicon. Like Colonel said, it's a carbon behind the silicon, because when you say it's AI, it's kind of like maths. Everybody just freezes up. They don't understand maths. They don't understand AI, so they can't counter it. It's like fact checking these days. It's this halo, you can't get past it. Okay. But what worries me is also, in addition to the carbon behind it and how it's used to sort of whitewash or paintbrush out criticism, is when you advance into quantum computing. And what does quantum computing do for that singularity? And singularity is basically when it achieves sentience, when the artificial life form achieves sentience. So you don't use Sarah Connor from Terminator, its beginning. That's the end of the world, where the robots wipe you out and take it over. I don't think we're in danger of that right now. First, you have to get to quantum computing. Then you have to sort of miniaturize enough. The energy requirements have to be managed enough. So there's a whole process even there to actually be able to get to sentience. I think one of the barometers of sentience will be getting a self-driving car, maybe, at least cognition. I don't think that's sentience yet, but people don't realize driving is an extraordinarily complex thing. Flying is easier than driving, actually, because you have to navigate more things while driving than you do flying. Right? So it's very, very problematic. I don't think you'll be there. So I'd say be alarmed, but don't be alarmed yet. Once the first quantum computer comes and you start getting quantum in a laptop or even in a suitcase, I'd say then start getting worried about it. Till then, it isn't. The problem, of course, is in India, we even then won't get it. Do you remember the Aadhaar data breach that happened?
Yep.
Some years back. So Aadhaar data breach. Now, remember, I was at the ration shop in Madras a few days back. And a lot of these people, their thumbs had been worn out. So fingerprint recognition wasn't happening. They did pupil recognition. It's got a full face biometric pupil whatnot recognition. There's that much data stored in it. Now, you'd reckon there would be more responsible people looking after it, right? No. When the data breach was taken to the Delhi High Court, or was it the Supreme Court? I forget. Do you know what the government response was? Aadhaar data is very secure because it's behind a 10-foot thick wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the exact response. I kid you not. That was the government's response. It is secure because it's behind a 10-foot thick wall. Google it. So, yeah. It happened. It happened. And I don't know what is scarier, that the government gave that explanation or the judge bought that explanation.
Okay, Abhijit, you want to come in on that? And then we have some viewer questions, which I'll post to the panel.
I have just one question for AIM. About that point where you said that we should start worrying when quantum computing comes in smaller packages, like a laptop. My question is, why so? Because if I take that parlance back, I mean, today our laptops are as powerful as used server farms of 30 years back or 20 years back. So it's just evolution.
Absolutely. And this is my emperor's new clothes, because for me, any quantum leap, sorry for the pun, but any quantum leap in data is dangerous till I understand the consequences of that data. I think we're fairly aware of what a current laptop can do. So for example, my phone today has enough processing power that even the president of America did not have at his fingertips 25, 30 years back, right? Call instantly anywhere across the world, get information immediately, word processor, document, fax, scan, photo, whatever. But that still is not AI, and it's not sentient AI. My thing is, I don't know what the limits of quantum will be till quantum comes into being. Until then, I would say it has to be controlled technology, which I will approach with great fear. I will encourage people to pursue it, but I will keep it tightly controlled till I understand what it can do. Till then, my approach to it will always be fear, because, it's like a kid. You never know if your kid is going to end up, two Austrian kids. If you're born in Austria, if you're born in Vienna, you have two options. One is you can become a musical genius like Mozart and give lots of people a great deal of pleasure. Or you can end up being a complete monster like Hitler, who was also an Austrian genius, who ended up, giving millions of people the exact opposite of pleasure. So I don't know what this baby is going to turn out to be like and how it'll be used or misused.
But I wouldn't quite hit the panic button there, because of the simple fact that it's plain evolution. And evolution, obviously, whatever happens, it needs to be understood. If we've come this far, and today, if you take the computing power that we have on our laptops, is enough to cause a lot of damage anywhere. But everything is about context. Use it in the right context, you get pleasure. In the wrong context, it's all pain. Right. So,
but Abhijit, will we use it? Will we use it in the right context? So that's why I said it's not just the beginning of quantum computing. It's the miniaturization of quantum computing that will get me starting to panic with my current knowledge levels right now. Because if you look at mankind in the past, we've had so many near collapses. There was the Bronze Age collapse in 1177 BC. You've seen the Maya collapse. You've seen the Roman collapse. You've seen existential collapses. I'm sure the dinosaurs thought they were evolving towards something good till those meteorites came hitting down in the Deccan and the Bay of Mexico and wiped them out. So I'm not going to stop quantum, but I'm always going to have... I won't call myself a Luddite, but I'll always be, sorry to use the word, shit scared when quantum first hits the shelf.
But then we'll have the right controls like we have today, because people will evolve to that level.
Maybe. Nuclear weapons show us that we can have the right controls. the kind of regimes that were developed to control it, and the fact that it has never been used since then, till the point it's used again.
True. If we talk nuclear, you can make a bomb out of it, or you can generate power out of it.
Yeah.
We have two options.
Or treat cancer with it. Or you treat cancer with it as well.
You can do that too. Yeah. And in the same way, quantum computing today is used by Google for a lot of their work. Well, at least that's what I read. So I'm sure it's somewhere. Now, how they use it is the question.
The way I've seen Google use it makes me very pessimistic. I've never seen somebody misuse technology more than Google. Amazon, maybe. They also misuse it, but Google especially.
Okay, can I jump in? So I was listening to Iyer Mitra when he was saying about that there are fraudulent companies, there are companies which are not into So here let me put it in this way. AI takes some time to mature, okay, and there has to be sufficient data sets, and because I study the social cohesion thing. I'd heard I know this logically company. These are a set of companies which are going to fight something called disinformation, because with fake news, disinformation, social media, this deep fakes, etc., we are now going to go into a realm where ordinary human will not be able to discern what is the truth and what is not the truth. For example, I consider myself reasonably educated, but this COVID vaccine, if you carry out a literature review today, taken from multiple places, whether the vaccines, what is the efficacy of the vaccines, how good are they or how bad are they, I'm not able to discern. Okay, you will need companies with AI who will be able to identify this. For example, again, data is not what you actually put out in one way. Like if you have a smartphone in your hand, you catch it, and there, okay, I tweet. That is what I have put out there. But what the smartphone captures is my facial expression, my blood pressure. When I see a particular tweet, those are the hidden things from data to this, which you need to be more afraid of. And AI in that way, one needs to that I initially only told you it's a multidisciplinary subject. There are many things which are happening in silos, and these things are happening as per a plan. The whole of internet, initially the internet, it's fascinating, came out of the Vietnam War, when they decided that the only way to control the population is by getting all the data about them, sorting them out, understanding how they, the experiment till date continues. So we should be very careful. Even when, like for example, there is a sensor. My eyes, I'm born, I can see, I can sense. It takes a certain time before that things becomes intelligence to a certain extent. Wisdom is a little distance away. Some people might never become wise, but those niches, especially a funded company, someone has identified a company and said, okay, it has got this particular potential, and it might play a particular role in a particular space. It finally might end up not playing that role. It might end up doing a totally different role. But as long as there is a company which is collecting data, and they have got a plan, and they're backed by people, I would be cautious. So back to you.
All right, and we'll just take some. We're already out of town, but time. Sorry, not out of town, but we're out of time.
I have to run.
AIM, I think we'll let you go. Yes, AIM. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you soon. And I'm going to hold on to the two of you for a little bit longer. Just very. In fact, there's one question for you, Abhijit. How better can we implement Indian office suites so that data of all forms stays within the country? I'm very wary of Office 365 and documents.
how better can we implement Indian office suites? Okay, so I'm assuming at this point that you're talking about using software for your own office. Now, Office 365 and Docs, these are run of various servers across the world and various clouds across the world. So when you talk about the cloud, you're actually talking about clusters of servers in various cities, various locations. And the one closest to you normally would serve you, depending on where you log in from. So if we talk about it in the Indian context, so if it's Office 365, which is a Microsoft product, it would be served to you from their Microsoft location, which is, I think there's one in Hyderabad and another one in Noida. I could be mistaken there, but I'm just going by what I had seen earlier. So if the question is about data privacy, I'm sorry, was a question about data privacy? The data
within the country. The data stays within the country.
Remains in the country. Okay. So this is a very, very common thing. When any company, I'll tell you, I come from the cloud world, and especially over the years, I've always seen, even before the data privacy thing became hot, financial information, especially banks, would move to the cloud and they will demand that their data remain in the country of their operation. So what they would do is they would go and talk to the cloud provider and tell them, hey, this is where I need my data to reside. So if you are going to do that, if you're going to buy something for your office, you want the data to remain in the country, you should tell your provider to use the VMs, means virtual machines, or the resources on the cloud within India. And they will give you an option to ensure that your data is stored in India. Or you could use providers who are Indian. Then you don't even have to ask a question. You know that your data will reside there.
Sorry, I'm on mute. I said like Digiboxx, your company.
Yeah.
That's what they do, right? Yeah.
Like Digiboxx.
Okay, can I also jump in and give this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Colonel.
So when I have been trying to talk about privacy to a lot of common folk, they say, I don't care if my data goes to the US or China. I'm more worried about the government or the government servants over here. I don't want them to trouble me. Okay, so that particular statement, I don't blame them for what it is, but it led me to think, what is this mitigation? And you go back to our surveillance, laws historically has been by the Telegraph Act done during colonial times. And that enabled our executive to carry out surveillance on the normal citizen. Now, when privacy has become a fundamental right, that needs to change. And how have other democracies done it? They have said, a fundamental right can only be, it's a right against the government overreach. So there has to be a judicial mechanism in between before they can, come and say there needs to be a warrant. How do they do it in the West, where they claim themselves to be liberal democracies? When the executive are saying, "Oh, I urgently need the data," they invariably give permission, but there is a trail which is maintained, and that acts as a check. Okay, here it has not happened, and for Abhijit and Digiboxx to be successful, he cannot just appeal to Indian sense of patriotism to just be successful. He also needs to ensure the government and the people need to be aware that if you have created a nation, you are a citizen, you have got your own constitution, that you don't trust your own people is because your policies have not been correctly enumerated. So I'm hoping that maybe with shows like this and people like Abhijit coming up, you need to say that you are trusted, not only because You are within the Indian system because you are under the Indian legal system. And for that, we need to have the
Yes.
correct laws. Okay. When this data goes to China and US, it is not being exploited. But it is not evident to the guy on the street. He's more worried about the local policeman or the taxman or the ED man who is going to trouble him. Okay. That awareness needs to come, and that is why these laws are very important. And that is why privacy is very important. It requires education, it requires people to be engaged, because if you look at the current law which is coming up, I'm slightly disappointed. They've not even classified the data. What is if you don't classify the data, then what protection will this nation give you if you don't localize it, if you allow it to go out? Huge problems. But it's a good, that's one of the reasons why I'm very happy, Advaita, I've done this program, and I've decided, I immediately said, okay, I'll come on board. But people like Abhijit need to, put their money and ensure that at least some amount of money hits for Indian lobbyists. Today, all the lobbying, we don't have a, Foreign Agents Registration Act. We don't have a lobby act. All the laws which are being done as, influenced by money which is coming from outside. It's not to our interest. I want you all to engage.
Is at least we try and interact at various places. We try to bring about awareness. At least we try from our front. So but I can tell you one thing, that about the privacy laws, we get a lot of questions from people across the country about privacy. So I think there is a good amount of awareness, at least.
But it's not leading to anything concrete. That awareness is not leading to our own national interests. People are aware, oh, China is a problem, but then it is not only the Chinese; it can be anyone.
I think you have a point about government intent, because when it comes to the media, for example, we do restrict foreign funding in the media because we don't want it to be controlled. Yeah, right. So I mean, I'm viewing it from my lens, which is from the media kind of lens, and I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, but then that has been overcome by the big tech coming and funding media, saying, okay, per month $10,000 for being that, so that's money flowing in, and already the media has started. So there you go. Yeah. So it is not a comprehensive law. We don't have a lobby act. We don't have a Foreign Agent Registration Act. So those are things which no one is talking about.
Yeah, and lobbying is a bad word also, right? In India, I mean,
India, it's a good word. In America, you have to lobby, but there has to be it has to be under some sort of regulation. It can't be a free-for-all where we are a poor country, and then corporates from outside can come and hire our smart-talking, lip-talking people, and here people are totally confused, and we create laws which are undermining us.
Well, we've gone way over time, so I'm afraid I can't take any more questions from our viewers. But thank you so much, both of you, for sparing the time on this riveting discussion, and frankly a little scary discussion. A lot to learn here, a lot to understand here. And Abhijit, really all the very best with Digiboxx. And I know that you're just expanding rapidly, so that's a good sign. And I also know that you're not very expensive, so that's good.
Oh yeah, we are trying to be as affordable as possible. Our aim is 1 rupee for 100 gigs per day, the cheapest possible, because we want everyone to start using that. Because if I could just take a second, we are at war with micro SD cards, which a huge population within our country use. So we are cheaper than them, and it's much more useful than buying a micro SD card on their phones.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And definitely checking this out, Digiboxx.
Yeah,
please,
for sure. Wow.
We'd love that.
For sure. And Colonel, thanks so much for joining us today. And I hope you'll come back, both of you actually, for our other shows when we discuss topics that are of interest to you. We discuss a whole range of topics.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show. Advaita, I hope one of the chief reasons is I need excellent storytellers and scriptwriters to tell this particular story so that the nation becomes aware of this. So I hope your next novel or your next movie would be on similar lines, where that communication to the arm army on the street about the dangers which are today there, you would bring that particular point out.
So you give me the stories and I will fictionalize them and dramatize them. And then if there are any tech mix-ups, which I will obviously do, I can always ask Abhijit, so have I got this right or have I just flown with my imagination on this one?
So for that, if you
Yeah,
come
we
down
are.
to Bangalore, we can always, meet up over a beer and then discuss that story. I'm
Yes.
all
And if
for
you're
it.
here in these parts, in
Yeah,
Delhi,
yeah,
the NCR, both of you,
yeah.
please do let me know.
Sometime.
Sure.
Definitely.
And of course,
Okay, thank you.
to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. And do like, share, and subscribe this discussion. I'm sure a lot of people will learn a lot from it. And I think it's important to have these conversations. We do a lot of politics on this channel, but I also feel that these are very relevant topics from the nation's point of view and also from our own personal safety and privacy point of view. And the more informed, like Colonel said, we get about these things, the better laws we'll have for ourselves and for future generations when tech gets even more powerful and even more quantum. I still haven't understood what a quantum computer is, and someone asked that question. I'm sorry. I'm with you on that one. I wish I could have asked it, but we've run out of time. But I'm sure we'll have them back and then discuss what quantum computing is. All right, everybody. Thank you so much and see you on Sunday. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye bye.
Thanks for having me.